Lesson 5. Accounting. The Income Statement. Part 1. Wall Street's Rosetta Stone. Please read and pay attention to the disclaimer on this slide. Having covered the basics of an income statement, we'll now explore the more critical topic of financial ratios. To introduce this subject, are you familiar with the Rosetta Stone? This ancient Egyptian artifact, discovered in 1799 and dating back to 196 BC, was crucial for deciphering Egyptian hieroglyphs. Financial statements brimming with endless rows of numbers can be puzzling without the aid of financial ratios. Think of these ratios as Wall Street's equivalent of the Rosetta Stone. They make the data comprehensible. I'll guide you on how to interpret these ratios, transforming raw numbers into compelling narratives and complex financial statements into digestible stories. Now, let's explore some of the key financial ratios commonly used. We're going to go over 5 basic financial ratios, going through each one's definition. Stick with this part because understanding the ratios will bring you one big step closer to being able to use them to uncover the hidden story in the income statement. The 5 ratios we're going to discuss are listed on this slide. Let's go through each one and better understand what they mean and why they're important metrics for evaluating a company's performance. If you want to pause the video to look more closely at them, feel free to do so. Let's begin with gross margin, a crucial metric that indicates how much value a company adds through the production of its products or the provision of its services. It measures the profit a company makes on its goods and services over and above the costs of production, offering insight into the perceived value of its products or services among consumers. Gross margin is calculated by dividing gross profit by revenue. Gross profit is simply revenue minus the cost of goods or services. In our example, it's $7 million. So the gross margin is 70%. That means the company makes 70 cents of profit for every dollar it receives in revenue. Let's do another example with Nike. Consider this scenario. Would you be willing to pay more for a bag of cement if it bore the Nike logo compared to a generic one? Most likely not. All cement bags serve the same function once used, making any additional cost for branding unjustifiable. Nobody can distinguish the brand of cement once it's set. In contrast, for products like t-shirts, consumers often value the branding significantly higher. A t-shirt adorned with the Nike logo typically sells at a premium compared to a non-branded one. This demonstrates how Nike's branding contributes to its apparel being distinct, which is evident in their higher gross margins of 44%, compared to the more modest 24% typical of a cement company. Gross margin is a vital metric that reveals not only the profitability of a company's products or services, but also indicates the level of competition within its industry. In highly competitive industries, companies face pressure to lower prices, which typically leads to reduced gross margins. Consider an example of children selling lemonade in a neighborhood. If numerous children set up lemonade stands, the increase in competition means none can significantly mark up their prices. Consequently, each stand earns a lower profit on each drink sold. This example highlights how an abundance of competitors in any market can suppress prices and therefore profits, impacting the financial health of the businesses involved. Now we'll turn our attention to sales and marketing. Let's first go over the definitions. Then we'll get to the insight. The sales and marketing expense ratio is equal to the sales and marketing expenses divided by revenue. In our example, it is 40%. Our hypothetical company spends 40 cents of every dollar of sales on selling, advertising, and marketing expenses. A company's expenditure on sales and marketing provides significant insight into its strategic priorities. Take Nike as an example, where brand recognition plays a pivotal role. This commitment is reflected in decades of substantial investment in advertising and marketing to enhance brand value. Consequently, a review of Nike's financial statements typically reveals high marketing expenses, aligning with its long-term branding focus. Spending on sales and marketing, despite being recorded as expenses on financial statements due to accounting standards, represents a crucial investment in building long-term brand value. Consider the concept of brand value through this scenario. Given the choice to purchase a cheeseburger for the same price from Five Guys or an unknown street vendor, most people would choose Five Guys. They can be reasonably sure that the burger is made of beef, and they're probably aware of Five Guys' reputation for tasty burgers. This illustrates the tangible impact of brand value. Customers choose recognized brands because they trust what they're getting. The man on the street might be a nice guy, but will you ever really know what's in his burgers? Since we're talking about burgers, look at these two images of fast food restaurants, McDonald's and Shake Shack. What do you immediately think of when looking at each image? Whatever views you have of either restaurant was formed by years of advertising and marketing messaging. This is another example of the big impact brand value can have on a company's products and services. Now we get to a different type of expense, general and administrative expenses. Before I explain why it's different, let's again go over the definition first. This ratio is equal to the general and administrative expenses divided by revenue. For our hypothetical company, they spend 7.5% or 7.5 cents of every dollar of revenue on general and administrative expenses, which are the basic things they need to do to run the company, like paying their employees or office rent. The general and administrative expenses ratio stands out from other financial metrics, such as gross margins. Unlike other expense categories, elevated general and administrative spending often signals inefficient and potentially wasteful management practices within a corporation. High levels of general and administrative expenses can indicate that employees are overwhelmed with unnecessary administrative tasks, which can severely hamper productivity across the organization. You don't want to see company employees bogged down under mountains of needless paperwork. The final ratio is the research and development expense ratio, which is calculated by dividing the research and development expense by revenue. For our example, that expense is 10% of revenue. So, the company spends 10 cents of every dollar of revenue on research and development. This ratio is a very important indicator of future growth. Fast-growing and innovative companies typically spend heavily on this expense. Research and development is the birthplace of new products and services. Investing in research and development represents a fundamental trade-off, whether to sacrifice immediate profits for potentially greater returns in the future. This investment decision is akin to the dilemma faced by two farmers, each owning a magical goose that can lay golden eggs. If they choose to consume the goose today, they satisfy immediate hunger but lose out on future wealth. For instance, one farmer eats his goose out of impatience and gains temporary relief, while the other patiently waits, allowing the goose to continue producing golden eggs, which eventually enables him to purchase an entire supermarket. This scenario mirrors the decisions company leaders face when allocating funds to research and development. I just told you that fast-growing companies spend aggressively on research and development. Well, prepare to be shocked. In 2022, NASA's budget was $24 billion. Just to be clear, the United States National Space Program spent $24 billion in that year. That's a big number, but then again, it's for space exploration. Believe it or not, in the same year, Alphabet, the owner of Google and YouTube, spent $40 billion on research and development. That's almost twice as much as the entire US space program. Pretty incredible when you think about it. You might be interested to know that Alphabet is also one of the leading pioneers of self-driving car technology through their Waymo business. Let's look at a company that is the opposite of Alphabet when it comes to R&D spending. That company is Goodyear Tire, one of the top 5 global tire manufacturers. Here's why Goodyear is so different from Alphabet. The invention of the wheel is estimated to have occurred around 3500 BC, or 5,700 years ago. Since that momentous point in time, the basic design of the wheel hasn't changed much. So it should come as no surprise that Goodyear spends relatively little, roughly 1% of Alphabet's spending on research and development. Two different companies and two different levels of spending. Now that we've gone through 4 of the 5 key expense ratios, let's focus on the operating margin, which is calculated by dividing operating income by revenue. In our example, it's 12.5%. Operating income is the amount of profit a company makes from running its businesses, and not just on selling their product or services. It's the profit after all operating expenses, but before any borrowing costs and taxes. It's an important metric in determining whether a business is good or bad, and it's one of the most important metrics when it comes to measuring a company's performance. This ratio tells us whether a company is a money printing machine with positive operating margins, or in the case of negative margins, a money burning machine. Great companies typically have high operating margins. They generate profit not only after their cost of making and selling their products or services, but after all other operating expenses as well. The higher the operating margin, the better the business. Congratulations! You have completed Lesson 5, Part 1.